1985.
Wimbledon 1985. Boris Becker, tan solo con 17 años, se convirtió en el campeón de Wimbledon más joven de toda la historia del campeonato y también el primero de su país, Alemania, que conseguía este triunfo. Para ello, tuvo que lograr pasar por duros enfrentamientos. Aquí lo vemos, por ejemplo, contra Nystrom en 1985 en su tercer round.
Twice in the final set of his epic 5-set battle against Joachim Nystrom of Sweden in round 3, the tall number 7 seed had served for the match. Twice he was denied by some truly heroic Becker recoveries.
Becker ha tenido una gran recuperación después de ir perdiendo contra Nystrom.
Well, this was an absolutely masterly shot because he had to play it so late. Usually when you play a ball that late, you play with backspin. Very strong wrist.
Un gran tanto de Boris Becker. Así también lo festeja. Otro tanto muy similar al anterior.
Well, this was a carbon copy of the Swedish return of serve by Becker this time. Once again, beautifully played.
Sí, logró el triunfo de este partido.
The final desperate set to Becker, 9 games to 7.
9 sets a 7 fue el triunfo de Boris Becker. Aquí lo vemos en la semifinal
and fighting to stay in the 4th set when this happened.
Contra Peter Mayotte.
A twist.
Y atención, parece que Boris Becker tiene problemas con su tobillo. Sí, afirmativamente es un problema serio en su tobillo. Pide el tiempo reglamentario, que son 3 minutos. No, quiere terminar el partido, parece. No se decide y al final el juez le concede los 3 minutos reglamentarios.
When, in the 3rd round against Bill Scanlon on court 4, and leading 2-1 in the 4th set,
le aplican mucho hielo en su tobillo.
Ya esto le había ocurrido a Boris Becker un año anterior contra Scanlon. Había sufrido una lesión por la cual había tenido que ser retirado en camilla del estadio de Wimbledon por una rotura de ligamentos.
Pero afortunadamente esta vez no fue nada grave. Su entrenador vendó muy bien su tobillo y parece que el partido va a continuar.
As against Nystrom, he won the match magnificently in the 5th.
Un muy bonito passing shot.
Great pass.
Otra vez, el gran passing shot de Boris Becker se hace sentir. Otro dándole el tanto. Y aquí nuevamente. Aparentemente la lesión ha quedado atrás.
2 match points remain.
Y tenemos 2 match points para que Boris Becker pueda ganar el partido.
Y lo logra. Esa pelota picó en la red y luego se fue afuera.
By the time Boris had reached the final against the tall South African number 8 seed, Kevin Curran, we knew, as indeed his parents did, that despite the tender years, here was an unusually mature talent.
Al momento de llegar a la final, frente al sudafricano Kevin Curran, todos sabían que el hecho de que un joven de 17 años disputara esa final era un hecho fuera de lo común, que realmente llamaba la atención, pero que, aparte de eso, le daba la primacía frente al sudafricano.
Aquí lo vemos entonces en la final de Wimbledon de 1985 y el partido empezaba así, muy pero muy emocionante. Un gran tanto de Boris Becker contra Curren de Sudáfrica. Otro excelente tanto de Boris Becker.
Once again, good return of service here, and the counter-attack from just behind the nine was a peach of a shot. Yes. Well, here's good play.
Lo encontró Boris Becker a Curren con su pie equivocado y allí fue donde dirigió la pelota. Parece que Boris Becker, aparte de jugar bien al tenis, también juega bien al fútbol. Le pide disculpas al juez.
Here's a full-blooded shot, yes, above the shoulder height, and yet manages to topspin it.
Lo hemos visto en los demás partidos, cómo retornaba el saque Boris Becker de la misma forma y lograba el tanto, ¿verdad?
Excelente el topspin de este jugador alemán, realmente demostrando una experiencia fuera de lo común para la edad y la final que estaba disputando, ¿no?
There's a fine point from the Becker point of view, a stretching backhand volley, and good anticipation again. He stays that side, guessing right. Yes. And here comes a point that will satisfy the man who makes it. His favourite shot, or one of them certainly, the cross-court looked up for him. Now, how can you anticipate this?
Advantage Becker.
Now, really, any normal person would be content to get that one back, but to think in terms of turning it into a winner was quite extraordinary.
Realmente imponente el juego de Boris Becker, incontenible para Kevin Curren. No tiene forma el sudafricano de penetrar el juego del jugador alemán.
Una pelota dificilísima acaba de meter dentro de la cancha Boris Becker. Atención que se puede haber sentido de su problema en los tobillos, no, pero veo que se levanta.
El jugador sudafricano impone su juego también. Demuestra su presencia dentro de la cancha.
Y por algo está en la final, ¿verdad?
6-4 Curren.
So 2 set points for Curren.
2 set points para Kevin Curren. Game para Kevin Curran. 1 iguales en sets. Excelente, excelente el tanto del jugador alemán, cambiándole de un lugar a otro de la cancha sus tiros.
Y así está desgastando al jugador sudafricano, haciéndolo correr por todo lo largo y ancho de la cancha.
And now this is supreme anticipation again here. From that awkward position, he comes right across, and he's got it. This is a remarkable rally, a backhand half volley counter-attack there. He gets this, and what a disguise.
Muy bueno el contraataque del jugador alemán en una posición nada cómoda para efectuar ese golpe. Realmente merecía el tanto el jugador alemán. El esfuerzo físico hecho en esa pelota había sido tremendo.
Lo vemos aquí en el replay, cómo logra reponerse después de esa caída y ya está en posición nuevamente para responder al tiro de Curran. Lamentablemente fue afuera esa pelota.
Okay. Well, here's a pass. He gets it up, and here's a pass coming that completely wrong-foots him. Here's something that reminds you of Borg here. He gets that one back there. It's a difficult ball, it's a low ball, and here comes the Borg whipped up pass. Well, here's a fantastic shot again. That, of course, is the forehand line, but he plays the backhand line there. One of the most difficult.
Ya está más cerca Boris Becker de concretar lo que para muchos antes del partido era una hazaña y que durante el mismo no lo era tanto. Aquí lo vemos. Excelente golpe cruzado, dejando totalmente fuera de lugar al sudafricano. Una volea realmente magnífica.
Un ace de Boris Becker. La desazón de Curran a esta altura del partido era increíble.
Que un menor de 17 años le estuviera jugando este partido de la manera que lo hacía Becker no estaba en los cálculos de nadie. Parecía que el ace se iba a repetir nuevamente, pero no fue así. Doble falta. Es increíble. Una doble falta a esta altura del partido. Realmente no estaban los cálculos de nadie. Lo hizo. Game y set para Boris Becker, campeón 1985 de Wimbledon. Y su festejo así lo demuestra. El aplauso del público que colmó las instalaciones del estadio de Wimbledon. Y aquí lo vemos, levantando la copa de campeón Wimbledon 1985.
Thus fell a record that had stood for 94 years. For the previous youngest men's champion had been Wilfred Baddeley, who had been 19 years and 175 days old.
Wilfred Baddeley había sido el campeón más joven de Wimbledon hasta el día que Boris Becker lo destronó.
Which gained him the title, as the holder did not defend that year. Baddeley's medals include the 3 gold for the 3 singles titles he would eventually win.
Aquí vemos las medallas de Baddeley por un récord que le duró más de 90 años.
The success of the early championships made by these identical twins from Bromley in Kent has often been overlooked. Maud Watson had also been 19 when she'd beaten her sister Lillian to become the first ladies champion in 1884.
Watson,
Only
19
30
años,
players had entered that
cuando derrotó a su hermana,
Maud's prize
fue la
was a
más
handsome
joven
20 guineas.
campeona de Wimbledon.
But the youngest champion of either sex was the remarkable Lottie Dodd, who won the first of
Aquí
her
tenemos Lottie Dodd,
in
la más joven campeona de ambos sexos de Wimbledon. 16
The
años.
youngster known as the Little Wonder was never beaten at Wimbledon, and after her last win in 1893, she turned her considerable talents to other pursuits. A hockey international in 1899 and 1900, Lottie then became the British women's golf champion in 1904. Furthermore, she was an accomplished singer, an excellent pianist.
Lottie se caracterizaba, aparte de jugar al tenis, por jugar al hockey, al golf,
Lottie Dodd,
por cantar, que lo hacía muy bien. Realmente una gama variada de aptitudes.
Another twin, William Renshaw from Cheltenham, had won the first of his record 7 titles, 6 of them in succession, at the age of
William Renshaw,
with brother
7 veces campeón, 6 veces consecutiva.
5 times.
Realmente un récord
These two became the game's first real stars,
para
bringing
este
a
deporte.
distinctive lawn tennis style to the sport that was different from the real tennis and racket styles of their predecessors. William was the first of the 6 men who have won the singles title of Wimbledon before their 21st birthday. The first overseas win at Wimbledon came in 1905 and was achieved by the English-born American champion Mae Sutton, who won again.
Mae Sutton, la primer campeona de a través del océano, la americana, fue la primera en destronar a los europeos de este magno torneo.
The game's first superstar was the legendary Frenchwoman Suzanne Lenglen, who was never beaten in singles at Wimbledon. She arrived as a 20-year-old in
Susan Lenglen, la francesa, nunca derrotada en Wimbledon, una de las estrellas de este campeonato.
defending champion Dorothea Lambert Chambers, who actually held 2 match points in the 16-game final set. The King and Queen were there to see this first of Suzanne's
El rey y la reina concurrían a verla.
in 1925, and were there too the following year when Suzanne left under a cloud following a misunderstanding over the scheduling. During Wimbledon 1924, Suzanne had been forced to concede her semi-final to the popular English girl Kitty McCain. Kitty's opponent in the final was the already legendary 18-year-old US junior champion Helen Wills, who would
Aquí la vemos enfrentando a Kitty McCain,
with 8 titles.
una memorable jugadora
Wimbledon defeat, in fact, was this loss to
del tenis mundial.
Who was the champion again in 1926 as Mrs. Godfrey. In 1984, a fit and sprightly 88, when Wimbledon celebrated 100 years of women's tennis, Kitty was given the greatest ovation.
Aquí vemos como Kitty, con unos años más, recibe el premio por ser la más antigua campeona de Wimbledon.
Presenting the ladies singles winner, Martina Navratilova.
Navratilova recibe de manos de ella
1925.
el trofeo por haber ganado Wimbledon.
René Lacoste was 21 when he beat his compatriot Jean Barotra, the defending champion. In 1927, Lacoste, the number one seed,
Lacoste,
15-year-old American,
el famoso tenista que dio nombre a la ropa,
in losing his first match at Wimbledon. 4 years later, he would win the title by default, the only champion to do so.
ganó el título
1932, Ellsworth Vines, a
frente a default por primera vez.
beat Britain's Bunny Austin for the crown. Nobody could remember having
En
seen.
1932, a Bunny Austin lo derrotó,
However, the following year,
coronándose campeón de Wimbledon nuevamente.
successfully resisted by Australia's Jack Crawford, one of the greatest of groundstroke exponents. Vines elected to play this 1933 final mostly from the baseline.
Los partidos frente a Jack Crawford en cancha de césped realmente memorables para los amantes de este deporte.
6-4 in the fifth set, and was regarded by contemporaries
6-4 en el quinto set
as the greatest match.
en la final de Wimbledon de ese año.
Another 21-year-old, America's Bobby Riggs, won the last
Bobby Riggs,
in 19.
21 años, norteamericano,
Riggs beat his fellow American Elwood Cook with whom
venció a Elwood Cook,
and then
compatriota suyo,
well with the lady singles winner that year, Alice Marble.
y también en dobles mixtos.
A remarkable
Se
17-year-old
coronó campeón.
Maureen Connolly from the United States became the second youngest ladies winner in
Maureen Connolly, 17 años, norteamericana, la segunda más joven campeona de Wimbledon.
Unbelievable that a girl of 17 can be so absolutely cool, calm, and I think go on and collect the championship. Can this be it? What a fighter Louise Graff is. No, that's it. That's it. 7-5, 6-3 for the youngest champion of the century.
7-5, 6-4 para ganar el campeonato más joven por una chica.
stamped Marine as one of the greatest of all champions. And it was
Una de las más grandes campeonas de la historia del tenis mundial.
should have cut short her brilliant career before her 20th birthday. Australian men dominated the mid-1950s. In 1956,
Los australianos en la década del 50 se caracterizaron por dominar
third leg of a grand
dichos campeonatos.
Rosewell fought it in the US.
1956, final, Holt, Roswell.
But anything can happen on the day. Holt serves and goes on to take the point.
Holt busca el tanto. Su servicio le ayuda y aquí está el tanto.
Rosewell fought gamely and took the second set, but that was all he was destined to win. As you'd expect, brilliant tennis was forthcoming.
Roswell demostró un leve repunte en el segundo set, pero fue lo único que pudo hacer.
When Lou Holt served at match point, well-earned victory was virtually his. Yes, that's it. Holt wins.
Holt, campeón Wimbledon, 1956.
Rosewell, hanging back in defeat, needed a little royal encouragement. Then Her Royal Highness presented the cup. Champion at 21, what a future he should have.
In the
21 años, gran futuro de este jugador australiano.
turning professional. But the following year, Cooper's moment of glory came when he defeated yet another Australian, Neil Fraser.
Fraser, left-handed serving.
Cooper versus Fraser, 1958.
Centre court fans were soon to see how Fraser was kept on the hop. It was grueling work, this battle between two men who are in fact close friends. Fraser took the first set and fought hard throughout.
Fraser ganó el primer set.
It illustrates both players' determination. It ends with Cooper winning the point.
Aquí vemos a Cooper ganando el punto.
Match point at the close of a long fourth set.
Match point en el cuarto set.
It's game, set,
Game, set y partido.
Vanquished today, Fraser himself would win the title in 1960. In 1959, the graceful Brazilian 19-year-old Maria Bueno won the first of her 3 titles by beating Darlene
María Bueno, brasilera, 1959. Contra Hart, ganaría la primera de las 3 campeonatos obtenidos por ella.
Beautiful serve. Very fast. A lot of slice, swerving it out to the forehand. A really lovely serve, rather along the Olmedo pattern. Here she is serving for the championship. 15, love. Miss Bueno didn't hear it, thought she'd served a miss. And 3 championship points.
Tres match points para Bueno.
15.
Ahora 2. 40-15. Game y set para María Bueno. Campeona brasilera. 6-4, 6-3 es el score.
Non-lead umpire here, Miss Bueno appears to have had an emotional touch. She's in tears of triumph.
Las lágrimas demuestran su emoción.
Maria as a national heroine in Brazil, where her portrait
Una
was used on the
heroína nacional del deporte brasilero, tal como lo catalogan
Sao Paulo.
los periodistas de su país.
3 years later, Karen Sussman, also 19, won the singles with a 6-4, 6-4 success against Vera Sukova, Wimbledon's first
3 años después,
from Czechoslovakia.
Sussman versus Sukova ganaba la final de 1962.
Definitely, Vera has got some trouble with her right leg. Showing a little tough, definite sign of a limp. And how sad this is. In this accident-ridden Wimbledon, that on finals day we should have one of the players suffering like this. 15-40. And 2 championship points for Karen Sussman.
15-40. 2 match points para Karen Sussman para llevarse este partido. Sukova luchará hasta el último minuto este partido. Duke.
Gallant server.
Ventaja para Sussman. Deuce, nuevamente. Ventaja para Sukova.
Mrs. Sukova won that game, but then faced championship points on Mrs. Sussman's serve.
Sukova se llevó ese game.
And a classic forehand drive.
40-30.
So championship point.
Un solo tanto para coronarse campeona de Wimbledon. Game, set y partido. Sussman, campeona de Wimbledon.
One of the youngest junior champions.
Una de las más jóvenes campeonas de Wimbledon de toda la historia, luciendo orgullosamente su trofeo.
The athletic Australian Margaret Smith was only 20 in 1963 when she beat Billie Jean Moffitt.
En 1963, la australiana Margaret Smith venció a la competidora Moffitt en un interesante partido.
The American gets this point, but it wasn't to be her day.
El norteamericano realmente no se encontraba en su día.
Point to the Australian. Now
Punto
Margaret Smith serving.
para la competidora australiana.
Point to the American. She
Nuevo
defeated
punto
Margaret
para la
Smith last
América.
year, but never looked like doing a repeat.
El año pasado ella le había ganado a la australiana, pero todo hacía prever que esta vez no iba a ser así.
Billie Jean serving.
Billie Jean.
But Margaret Smith wins the point. And
Sirviendo
the first
el
set,
saque.
6-3. Still plenty of time for Billie Jean to fight back, but the American service didn't have its usual sting. Usually it's her strongest weapon. Not this time, though. Now a Margaret Smith ace.
Ace para Margaret Smith,
But Billie Jean never gives up. Margaret Smith knows
pero
it.
Billie Jean no se entrega.
In less than an hour, it was match point. Billie
Match
Jean
point con saque de Billie Jean.
And that's it. Margaret Smith has done it.
Margaret Smith lo hizo. Game, set
And altogether, between
y campeona nuevamente.
1975 Margaret won 62 titles from the 4 Grand Slam
aunque esta vez por primera vez de Wimbledon, claro.
in 1970. Billie Jean, who married Larry King in 1975, would become Wimbledon's most successful champion. That in 1979, when she won the ladies' doubles to claim her 20th title.
En 1979, Billie Jean obtuvo el doble.
Miss Smith, now Mrs. Court, herself had to submit to another Australian, the part Aborigine Yvonne Goolagong. Only 19, Miss Goolagong allowed
Tuvo que enfrentarse a la señorita Goolagong de Australia.
Unexpected and delightful successes ever seen there.
Goolagong versus Court, 1971, final de Wimbledon.
Passing the pressure go to King also. A rally really worthy of the final there.
30-40. Excelente el tanto, luchado hasta el fin por ambas competidoras.
Still going there, a little slow reacting to the net court, but what a marvelous sprint at the end to pick it up.
Excelente el tanto, forzado por Goolagong.
So, championship point for the first time.
Cuarta vez consecutiva del tanto para Goolagong para coronarse campeona de Wimbledon. Game. Goolagong, campeona de Wimbledon.
Goolagong won 6-4, 6-1.
6-4, 6-1 ha sido el score de este partido.
Her second Wimbledon. Last year she was beaten in the second round by Peaches Barkovits.
El año pasado perdió en la segunda ronda de este campeonato.
A really tremendous performance. Now that's a victory.
Realmente una performance tremenda de esta joven tenista.
Genius of another sort, a relentless consistency and accuracy from the baseline, was the hallmark of Chris Evert's game. The Florida girl
Y aquí tenemos una tenista que marcará historia, sin duda, en el futuro del tenis mundial femenino. Hablamos de Chris Everloyd. En 1974, en la final frente a Morozova, en lo que será el inicio de una carrera prolongada y exitosa de la tenista norteamericana.
Fine volley. Fantastic rallying by Miss Everett. Every ball was perfectly timed, every stroke. And a marvellous drop shot at that. Two-handed pass right out of the bag. Magnificent stroke it is.
Day 15. Day 30.
Fuera y Dios. Gran levantada de la tenista norteamericana luego de perder 40-0. Ha logrado igualar el game.
So from love 40 love to deuce. Out.
Ventaja
So it's championship point.
para la señorita Everett y match point. Fuera el primer saque de la jugadora soviética. Game, set, y Chris Everloyd inscribe su nombre por primera vez en el magno torneo tenístico del mundo.
So a wonderful smile there at last from the little lady so often called Miss Poker Face.
Su sonrisa demuestra la alegría y emoción por haber logrado este triunfo.
With that win, Miss Everett became the 10th lady champion to have won the Wimbledon singles before their 21st birthday. A select
Chris Everett es la 10ª jugadora menor de 20 años en haber obtenido el campeonato de Wimbledon.
his two titles with a blistering display of arrogant aggression that totally demolished
Y pasamos a las finales
Australia's Ken Rosewall.
masculino en Wimbledon. 1974 final con los Rosewell.
Those who are having to play against an inspired performer at the moment.
Excelente tanto jugado por ambos.
And real athleticism.
30-0.
Very wide forehand volley. 30 love. Three championship points for
40-0 y 3 match point para Connors.
40-15. Somehow Rosewall got one off his chest for a backhand pass, but it's 2 championship points.
Ahora 2 match point para Connors.
Yes.
Y un gran repunte en el final de Rosewall.
Championship.
40-30. El saque de Connors. Un gran saque de Connors, y Connors es el nuevo campeón de Wimbledon 1974. Jimmy Connors, otro tenista estadounidense.
In 1976, a young man from Sweden, just 20,
Un joven tenista que venía de Suecia y había ganado el Abierto de Francia, llegaba a la final de Wimbledon.
Bjorn Borg's opponent that day was the errant genius from Romania, Ilie Nastase.
Ilie Nastase era el otro contendiente rumano.
Stan Smith had beaten him in a memorable 5-set final.
Ellos se iban a encontrar en 1976 por Nastase en la final de Wimbledon.
Borg 5-4 in the third set and serving for the match.
Una gran final protagonizada por estos dos grandes tenistas.
on that point.
Hacia el final, una gran recuperación de Nastase.
15-30.
What a fine service by Borg when he was in trouble there.
Un gran tanto de Borg.
And he deuce. Borg volleying like a king here. The man who was supposed to be A rather weak volleyer in terms of world class, volleying like a king. Deuce, 5-4.
Y otro tanto para Borg.
So championship point for Borg.
Así que es el match point para Borg. Pero Nastase juega como si nada, atacando siempre. Vuelve a perder el tanto Borg. Y ventaja para Nastase. Y game para Nastase.
Whatever the result of this final, that was the most memorable game. Stasi saving that championship point. 5-all.
But 5 games later, Borg again serves for the title at 8-7.
Love. Love.
Three championship points for Borg, making 4 in all.
Y así consigue Borg su campeonato en Wimbledon. No lo puede creer.
Borg's success that day set him off on a run of 5 consecutive Wimbledon wins, that was second only to William Renshaw's 6, achieved in the last century when the
Borg
stood out until the challenge round.
conseguiría nuevamente varios campeonatos en Wimbledon.
1977, Wimbledon's centenary year, a bright new 18-year-old American called John McEnroe came to Wimbledon as the French Open mixed doubles champion and the winner of the junior title in.
Luego de ganar el Abierto de Francia, vendría de Estados Unidos
He then won 5 more.
este joven de 18 años,
a
proveniente,
Wimbledon record of 8 singles wins.
como ya dijimos, de Estados Unidos.
In the semi-final was none other than Jimmy Connors.
Joe McEnroe contra Jimmy Connors. Semifinal, 1977.
Well played, well played.
Muy buen tanto de Joe McEnroe. Y game para McEnroe. En la semifinal, recordemos, 1977, Connors-McEnroe.
Worthy of the former Wimbledon champion. No, it was solid because the backhand of McEnroe's was absolutely first class. Oh, that's a beautiful shot.
Un hermoso golpe de Connors, llegando de una punta a la otra de la cancha para responderle ese golpe de John McEnroe.
Although Connors won this first meeting between them, it was already apparent that a formidable
Connors ganaba esta semifinal.
at times somewhat abrasive, had arrived on the scene. Another newcomer in centenary year was the amazing little Californian Tracy Austin.
Tracy Austin de California.
Was Wimbledon's youngest ever competitor at that time.
Era la competidora, se iba a convertir en la competidora más joven que llegara a competir en Wimbledon.
She faced the top seed.
Aquí en el tercer round, Ebert contra Austin.
Have things all her own way.
My God, didn't she play that very well?
Una magnífica volea de Austin. Y otro excelente tanto para esta jovencita californiana, Austin.
15 all.
15-0.
She's run everything down. Her defense has been quite terrific. So the champion has a point for the match.
Y este tercer round fue para Chris Evert, luego de una muy dura lucha contra Austin. Aquí está naciendo una nueva estrella del tenis mundial.
However, a series of injuries forced her out of the game in 1984, before she'd perfected her grass court skills sufficiently to win the Wimbledon crown. The following year, Miss Evert, now 23, was in the final.
Evert, ahora con 23 años,
her opponent this time was a 21-year-old left-hander from Czechoslovakia called Martina Navratilova.
competiría contra Martina Navratilova de Checoslovaquia.
Made her a most exciting player to watch, though a thoroughly intimidating one for her opponents.
La final, en 1978, entonces, Navratilova versus Chris Evert, las eternas rivales del tenis. A partir de 1978, por supuesto.
That must be worth a lot in confidence to Miss Evert, because that was right out of the bag, that one.
Un gran tanto para Martina Navratilova.
Wonderfully confident play by Miss Navratilova there.
Love.
Leap there from Navratilova as she makes the drop volley.
Love.
3 championship points, Miss Navratilova.
3 match point para Martina Navratilova. Y así lo logra Martina Navratilova, es la nueva campeona de Wimbledon contra Chris Evert, quien sería, como ya dijimos, después de esta final, muy duras rivales.
Martina won 2-6, 6-4, 7-5. the first of 7 singles titles that this great attacking player would win during Wimbledon's first 100 championships, a span which of course included only 93 years of women's tennis. Borg's great run finally came to an end in 1981, when the volatile skills of McEnroe, who was by now 22, at last prevailed.
Borg se concluyó en la final
In 4 hard sets
con
that
Joe
contained
McEnroe
some marvelously skillful
en
tennis.
1981.
There was an inspired shot to beat the champion, that was it.
Puede creer.
40-30. This is going to be a real test for McEnroe. A real test. There's the linesman. Signaled clearly that he thought the ball was in. Calms down. Equally convinced that it was out, McEnroe. And good for him.
So a perfectly timed smash gives McEnroe his 2nd championship point.
No lo puede creer. Joe McEnroe es el nuevo campeón de Wimbledon.
So ended the Borg era. And it
Entonces, con Joe McEnroe terminaba la era Borg.
The relentless surge of youth. In 1984, he faced the challenge of the 90-year-old Australian Pat Cash.
Pat Cash, el
Here, in the
australiano,
semi-final, we could already see the
jugaba la
emergence
final
of a great grass-court talent.
contra Joe McEnroe.
Good night. You have to congratulate Cash here on playing a very awkward volley, which got too close to his body, really, with great control. Could hardly have been better, could it? Well, it won't perhaps do it justice, but what a wonderful rally this was. It was again the return of serve that set up the chance, and the ball straight at the man at the net, often the best place, and quick as McEnroe is, Cash is quicker.
Love 15. Love 30.
Match point.
Yes, match point. Y partido para John McEnroe. Hot catch.
McEnroe won that semi-final in straight sets. After
Quedaba
Wimbledon
fuera
1985,
de la final de
Cash had a
Wimbledon.
serious back problem that kept him off court for 6 months. And 3 weeks before Wimbledon 86, he had to have his appendix out, and yet amazingly still reached the quarter-finals. He's certainly a potential future champion, as is Stefan Edberg of Sweden, who defeated Cash in the final of the 1987 Australian Open. Clearly, these two are the most likely challengers for Becker's crown. And could this brilliant young German, Steffi Graff, be the one to replace Martina and Chris
Aquí tenemos a
at the head
Steffi
of the
Graff,
women's game?
la que hizo el número uno en el mundo,
Wimbledon in 1984,
y ha dejado
when she
atrás
gave
la
the
era
British number one
Navratilova
Fury
y
the
Ebert.
fight of her life.
En 1984, cuarto round, Fury y Graff. Un gran partido de Steffi Graff. Muy bonito punto de Steffi Graff nuevamente.
Second match point.
Watch this backhand turn, pretty cool for match point down.
At last her service is starting to go in and go in with real penetration and weight, and you know how she feels and everyone else. Match point number 3.
Y así terminaba su primera participación en Wimbledon, Steffi Graff. Luego,
after that match, Steffi had said without any conceit that she believed she would win Wimbledon within 3 years.
dijo que regresaría en 3 años y que sería finalista en Wimbledon. Y lo logró.
Or maybe the beautiful young Argentinian
O tal vez
Gabriela
sería
Sabatini,
la
a year
argentina
younger than
Sabatini
Australia, will be the one to emerge as the next
la que
champion.
lograría
Certainly her dazzling performance against
final de
champion
Wimbledon.
Navratilova in 1986, when she was
Tendrían
only
que pasar
16,
sobre
suggests a very
Navratilova.
bright future indeed.
Ambas. Aquí vemos a Sabatini contra Navratilova en 1986, la semifinal.
So well played.
Sabatini started off with amazing confidence, and she is very good at the net, both the deep volleys and the short angle ones, which are the winning shots on grass.
Oh, yes.
Y sí que hizo carrera Navratilova, Gabriela
And
Sabatini.
a beautiful shot, both of the backhand. But look how well she gets over to that one. And that is not easy to hit as hard as that when you're running as fast as that.
Otro muy bonito tanto de Gabriela Sabatini frente a Martina Navratilova. Recordemos, es la semifinal 1986.
Well, I'm impressed by the way that Gabby is staying in this, because Martina's putting her under so much pressure, just coming in constantly, and she's producing some good passing shots.
Y ganaba el partido Navratilova.
Martina herself is the first to acknowledge that these brilliant young players will one day overtake her. The cruel but inevitable aging process makes that a certainty before long. But although Boris Becker still has youth on his side, he's well aware that world standards are continually rising and the commercial pressures are continually increasing, so that his tenure as champion is far from secure. Every year he'll need to produce the sort of form that enabled him to retain his title magnificently in 1986 against the fierce challenge of the world's number one, Ivan Lendl.
Ivan Lendl, aquí, frente a Boris Becker, en la final 1986. Recordemos, Boris Becker ya es campeón de Wimbledon, habiéndolo logrado el año anterior, 1985.
Would ever have attempted to reach the ball, let alone produce a shot like that. Unbelievable.
Un excelente tanto, realmente excelente de Boris Becker.
For the first time in the match, Boris Becker has connected with one of those very early takes
muy usado por él en varios partidos que hemos visto. La devolución del saque del contrario de revés. Otro excelente tanto de Boris Becker.
40. Beautiful rally this, because Becker had to make a very difficult volley which he controlled to such a good length. That was the key. So it was a defensive lob and little difficulty getting under that for the smash.
Nuevamente devolviendo el saque de revés.
This now begins to look ominously good.
Boris Becker logrando así el tanto.
Killing shot off the ground for 2 weeks.
Y un revés paralelo a la devolución del saque de
his wrist on this one. That's where he's so good with his hands. 5 B's. $15.30. Beautiful. Top-spin forehand here from Becker. Gets his feet right, boys. And the wretched Lendl is made to stretch. Thank you. Marvellous footwork here, hitting it on the run. Absolutely terrific. So, 2 set points.
Set point.
Becker looking for a shorter second serve, but not very good. It was just inside the line, wonderful length. It's still set point.
Nuevamente set point. Sí, consigue así el set. Boris Becker.
Game and first set, Becker. 6 games to 4.
6-4
break
para Boris Becker.
Becker played then. Yes.
Otro bonito tanto de Boris Becker.
Relatively calm and cool. 15-40. In the early part of this set, Becker suddenly explodes.
He's done it. My goodness, what a reply.
Y ahora un excelente tanto de
Well, it's a blocked return, it's high.
Inalcanzable, realmente.
Plays it only half-heartedly and doesn't really get into position for that hooked reply.
Otro hermoso tanto de Ivan Lendl.
Well, a very brave defense here by Lendl. Again, the low blocked return makes Becker pause on the half volley. And instead of going down the line, this time across court. Love 30. And more nervous moments for the Becker family.
Momentos de nerviosismo para la familia de Boris Becker. Increíble el tanto que ha conseguido Boris Becker. Luego de estar en el piso se recuperó y logró controlar.
Picks it up off the net board. There'll be all and sheer ecstasy. Quiet, please. Thank you, thank you. Quiet, please. Please. 6-5, 30 all. Third set.
Y así festeja su familia.
40-30. Championship point.
Y es match point para Becker.
Quiet, please. Thank you. Thank you. Game set and match to Becker.
Game, set y el campeonato es nuevamente de Boris Becker en 1986. Ganador 2 veces consecutivas entonces de Wimbledon.
Becker wins by 3 sets to love. 6-4, 6-3, 7-5. As Boris received the trophy from Bjorn Borg, the oldest living men's champion, it was hard
Boris
to
Becker
believe
recibe el
after
trofeo
that extraordinary mature
del
performance
vencedor más antiguo
a double champion at
de
18
este trofeo.
was still younger than any previous men's winner. Whatever the
Es
future
el
may hold
ganador
for
más
him,
joven
Boris Becker,
de toda la historia de
53rd
este
man to win
torneo.
at Wimbledon, will surely be remembered as the greatest young champion of them all.
El único que lo ha ganado 2 veces consecutivas, siendo el más joven. Seller Parrado Video Limitada presentó lo mejor de Wimbledon. Doblado en los estudios de Seller Parrado Video Limitada, Montevideo, Uruguay.